Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Yuat. It's Wednesday, October 5th. This is Africa 54.
Burkina Faso's new military leader commits to a transition timeline agreed on between his predecessor and West Africa regional bloc, ECOWAS. Uganda and the United Nations Refugee Agency brace for a new surge of refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And a youth-led tech company seeks innovative solutions to local problems. We'll talk to the man behind the technology.
We'll have those stories in a moment, but first, the trial of Felicien Kabuga, one of the last fugitives charged over the 1994 Rwanda genocide, resumed at The Hague on Wednesday. Kabuga is charged with financing the genocide that killed more than 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus in 100 days. He did not show up in court again Wednesday. Kabuga evaded justice for more than 2 decades, allegedly used his influence and wealth to incite the killings of thousands of ethnic Tutsi civilians. He is also alleged to have used his resources for radio broadcasts in Rwanda, denouncing the Tutsis and funding the Interahamwe militia that carried out the genocide. Now, for the latest on Felicien Kabuga's trial at The Hague, I'm joined live via Skype by reporter Venuste Nshimiyimana. Venuste, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Venuste, bring us up to speed on today's proceedings at The Hague.
Today's proceedings were about presenting the first evidences in this trial. And the first witness was there to confirm that he personally met Kabuga at 2 occasions, once in November 1993 and second in February 1994. He confirmed to the prosecution, that Kabuga, who led the delegation to the Ministry of Information, was responsible for the editorial agenda of RTLM, the propaganda radio that was calling for violence against Tutsi. And also confirmed that in 1994, the Ministry of Information was about to sanction the radio, eventually to close the broadcast of Radio Mircolin, but Kabuga insisted that it was the right of Radio Mircolin to broadcast, is the right of telling the Rwandan people what was going on. What we heard this morning was someone who said that Kabuga had the overall responsibility of Radio Mircolin, but also the fact that Radio Mircolin was calling Hutus to unite against Tutsi, especially from October 1993, after the assassination of the Burundian President Melchior Ndadaye.
What reasons were given for not having him appear in person in the court today?
For the second time, Kabuga didn't appear in court, but I can tell you that today he was in his prison, but he assisted to the session. So he didn't turn up in the courtroom, but he was there. We could see him, and we were told that he would be following the session from the prison. Kabuga didn't want to come again for the second time to the courtroom, simply because he doesn't want to be represented by the French consul Emmanuel Artite, who believes he doesn't defend his own interests, and they would rather see him replaced by another consul, Peter Robinson.
It's reported that the court hearings today was very, very short. Do we know the reasons why?
Indeed, it was very short. The reason behind this is that Kabuga is very frail, is very weak. He's 87, 89 for some, and 87 for others. He's very weak, and he has been allowed to attend trial sessions only for 2 hours a day. And today, The prosecution wanted eventually to extend that time in order to listen more to the witness. But the defense lawyer, Emmanuel Atete, stood up to say that he believes that these would really jeopardize the interests of his client, and that for those medical reasons, they should not go beyond 2 hours. What was accepted, and the trial had to stop.
Venuste, thank you so much for your reporting. Reporter Venuste Habyarimana, live from The Hague in Netherlands. Ethiopia has turned over to Dutch judicial authorities a 38-year-old Eritrean man suspected of playing a leading role in a major international criminal network that smuggled Eritreans to the Netherlands. Prosecutors say the man is suspected of large-scale smuggling of Eritreans from Africa to the Netherlands. They also say the migrants' journeys were marked by brutal violence and risky sea crossings. Dutch prosecutors say the investigation included cooperation from Italy, Europol, Interpol, and the International Criminal Court. The suspect, whose identity is not being released, arrived in the Netherlands Wednesday and was taken into custody. Now to West Africa, where the mediator sent to Burkina Faso by West Africa's main political and economic bloc, ECOWAS, Mahamadou Issoufou, says he is satisfied by a meeting with the country's new military leader, Ibrahim Traoré. Issoufou says that the 15-member bloc will continue to support Burkina Faso's transition to constitutional rule after the country was hit by its second military takeover this year. ECOWAS has repeatedly urged the junta that seized control on Friday to respect a timetable agreed with their predecessors to return to constitutional rule by July 2024. Burkina Faso's government released a statement saying the meeting occurred but provided no further comments.
I'm totally satisfied with the meeting I had with the captain. We live with confidence. We will be briefing the president of ECOWAS and other heads of state on our mission. But I can assure you that now ECOWAS will remain with the people of Burkina Faso and will continue to assist the people of Burkina Faso in this difficult challenge.
Frustrations over growing insecurity spurred both by the first military takeover in January and the latest coup. ECOWAS is struggling to facilitate a return to constitutional order in Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea and Mali, all of which have endured coups since 2020. Who is Burkina Faso's new military leader? Ibrahim Traoré has gone from being a career soldier to the self-declared leader of the West African country. Details are emerging on how Traoré, 34, and his military colleagues are planning to use their time in power. David Doyle has more.
It was not long ago that Ibrahim Traoré, a relatively low-ranking officer in Burkina Faso's military, was running an artillery regiment in a small northern town. Now, cheering crowds greet the self-declared leader after he and a group of soldiers overthrew President Paul-Henri Damiba. It was the West African country's second coup this year. But in an interview with Radio France International, Traoré insisted he will not be in charge for long. A national conference will appoint a new interim leader by the end of the year, he said, and an agreement with West Africa's regional bloc for a return to civilian rule by 2024 would be honoured. Still, an early picture of what Traoré's junta intends to do with its time in power has emerged. Burkina Faso's battle against groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State is likely to be a focus. Traoré is a career soldier who's fought on the front line against the militants. The insurgency has killed thousands, and it was anger over the escalating violence that fueled a coup in January, bringing Damiba to power. However, army officers who supported him quickly lost patience. Burkina Faso's new military leaders say Damiba refused to reform the army. Attacks worsened, including one just days before the coup, in which 11 soldiers were killed. As well as army reform, another option for Traoré is ties with new international partners, such as Russia. Russian flags have been waved in the street, and Russia has expressed support for the coup, just as Western powers were condemning it. The founder of Russian private military company Wagner Group has congratulated Traoré. Wagner operates in several African countries, including Burkina Faso's neighbour Mali, where it has been accused by human rights groups and locals of participating in the massacre of civilians. It has not responded to the accusations. Wagner's arrival in Mali last year spelled the end of France's decade-long mission against militants in the country. Ties between Burkina Faso and Russia could further strain relations with the former colonial power. In the aftermath of the coup, the French embassy in Ouagadougou was attacked by Traoré's supporters. Burkina Faso's junta had stoked the anti-French rioting, saying that France had sheltered Damiba at a military base. France denied this. Traoré, now on a crash course in diplomacy, downplayed the link between Damiba and France and called an end to the protests. But about ties to Russia, he was vague.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Mining companies in Burkina Faso say their operations are continuing as normal following the country's second military coup of 2022. Mia Wormersley reports.
The biggest mining company in Burkina Faso said on Monday that its operations are unaffected by recent political events, following the West African country's second military coup of the year. Endeavour Mining's London-listed shares fell 1.6% in early trading after Friday's ouster of President Paul-Henri Damiba. The company, which has 4 gold mines and 2 exploration projects in Burkina Faso, said it was monitoring the situation and would provide further updates if appropriate. Endeavour also has mines in Senegal and Ivory Coast, but analysts said Burkina Faso accounts for 54% of its expected 2022 production. Another mining company in Burkina Faso, West African Resources, said its Sanbrado gold mine was operating normally. Staff and contractors are safe, it said, and the communities around Sanbrado remained calm. Its shares fell 10% to hit a 1-year low.
That was Mia Wormersley of Reuters reporting. The Ethiopian government is accepting an African Union invitation to hold peace talks with Tigrayan rebels, according to a tweet from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's National Security Advisor. Redwan Hussein posted on Twitter that the government had accepted this invitation, which is in line with their position regarding the peaceful resolution of the conflict and the need to have talks without preconditions. There was no immediate response from the Tigray People's Liberation Front to the announcement, which comes more than a month after intense fighting resumed in northern Ethiopia, shattering a March truce. The Ugandan government and the UN Refugee Agency both say a surge of refugees fleeing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo is tearing apart families and stretching aid resources. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees says officials were prepared to help some 68,000 Congolese refugees expected in Uganda, but now more than 150,000 are predicted to arrive by year's end. Halima Thumani reports from Kisoro, Uganda.
Congolese refugees stream across Uganda's western border with the Democratic Republic of Congo to escape nearly a year of fighting between M23 rebels and DRC government troops. Senjuva Gasigwa Filipe, one of many refugees crossing into Uganda, says people were forced to flee when gunfire woke them in the middle of the night.
I first came with just a few of my family members because others got lost. It's just recently that I reunited with them. This is because we got separated at night.
Other refugees weren't so lucky. Amani Gidide lost contact with 3 of her children and is about to move from a transit center to a refugee settlement.
Where
I was staying, I didn't have space. So I've decided to go so I can find where to stay. My other children who are still missing, with God's love, they will be found.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees says since January, 71,000 refugees have crossed into Uganda from the DRC, and that number is expected to more than double by the end of the year. The UN Refugee Agency's Uganda representative Matthew Crenshaw says as a result, resources are overstretched.
If you look at the funding received now compared to the new needs, I mean, given the renewed or the planning figure which has been reviewed, it's only about 11% or so which has been received, which is woefully inadequate, I mean, to cover the needs and the growing needs of these refugees.
Ugandan officials say a holding center for refugees has been opened to support the overflowing transit center, which already hosts some 14,000 refugees.
We are operating 2 centers at a go. The transit center being for those ones who are ready to move to the settlement. Then the holding center was designated for those ones who still need to make up their mind or in case to wait for their family members, because we know what war does.
The M23 rebels launched attacks on DRC forces in 2012, saying they were fighting for good governance. After being quiet for nearly a decade, the group resumed fighting in late 2021, seizing territory and causing refugees to flee the violence. Congo has repeatedly accused its smaller Central African neighbor, Rwanda, of backing the M23, a charge Kigali denies. Meanwhile, Congolese refugees like Gididi wait, hoping to be reunited with family and return home soon. Halima Athmani for VA News, Kisoro, Uganda.
Still in Uganda, officials have confirmed the death of a health worker from Ebola. That brings the total number of fatalities in the country from the highly contagious virus to 10. This latest death comes 2 weeks after the government declared an outbreak. Health Minister Jane Ruth Acheng says that a 58-year-old anesthetic officer died of Ebola early Wednesday. The total number of Ebola cases in Uganda now stands at 43. Since the initial outbreak was discovered in the central district of Mubende, infections have been found in Kasanda, Chegegwa and Kagadi. But President Yoweri Museveni is vowing not to impose any lockdowns to tackle the disease. Museveni says 19 others classified as probable Ebola cases have also died, but they were buried before they could be tested. Ahead of November's climate talks in Egypt, African representatives say the continent needs time and money to wean itself off fossil fuels in order to achieve net zero without jeopardizing its future. At energy conferences this week, Ghana, South Africa and the African Union have insisted that Africa stands by net zero, the goal of an overall balance in heat-stoking greenhouse gases. But they warn that the continent is still heavily dependent on coal, oil and gas to power its development. Africa's population of 1.3 billion is set to double by 2050, and African nations aim to make affordable and reliable energy available to everyone by 2063. Let us know what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come in our tech report, a youth-led technology company creates a tech ecosystem in Cameroon. But first, Heidi Adams tells us what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, why can't South Africa keep the power on? We'll explore how Africa's most developed economy and largest polluter is paying the price for its heavy dependence on coal. We'll also explore ways African countries can possibly diversify their energy resources. Join me, Heidi Adams, as we talk about energy on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other African news, Uganda's Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the son of President Yoweri Museveni, has been promoted by his father, despite his controversial tweet that caused friction with Kenya. A new report reveals nearly $1 billion vanished in a massive bank credit scam that has devastated deadly impacts on children and communities across South Sudan. At least 3 people of interest have been identified by South African police investigating the killing of a German tourist by gunmen. Authorities are searching for the suspects identified in their probe. The tourist was fatally shot Monday near an entrance to the Kruger National Park, South Africa's largest game reserve. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says he is committed to ensuring next year's general election in the West African nation is free and fair. President Buhari also expressed concern about African leaders who he says amend their constitutions to overturn established term limits. Buhari says he backs efforts by ECOWAS to pressure such leaders to peacefully hand over power after their terms expire. VOA's Peter Claude spoke with Nigerian presidential spokesman Garba Shehu about Buhari's comments.
As it is, the budget for their work has been approved. So in essence, all of the essentials, all of that they need as projected under the current appropriation budget, they have approvals for all of that. So if there are many more things they need, we're a democracy, we work through the parliament. They bring up their proposals and the parliament will look at them and they pass. We have an electoral law, a new electoral act, which is reformed, which is outstanding in so many ways. And it is perhaps the most important assurance of a free and fair election because the president has seen the need to reform this sector and he has done so. He has signed on to the law and it is already in place.
That was VOA's Peter Claude speaking with Nigerian presidential spokesman Garba Shehu. It's time for a tech report, and joining us now is our technology reporter Paul Ndiho. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Esther. Young Africans are leveraging technology to build innovative solutions to local problems and to create an impact by nurturing and equipping the next generation of change makers with digital skills and entrepreneurial skills. In southern Cameroon, Nevtech, a youth-led technology company, is creating a tech ecosystem. I spoke to Nzomitha Navis, a tech entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Nevtech. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are making an impact on the ground, trying to help a lot of young people acquire skills. Let's start there.
For the past 4 years plus, I've been engaging myself together with other young people, in community development, most especially, especially using technology. So our activities cut across, community development, education, and entrepreneurship. I started an organization called Nevtech in 2018, and through this organization, we have been able to impact over 20,000 young Cameroonians and across Africa too, because there are programs that we run that people participate from different African countries because of the impact that we have been able to create in 2018. And after 2 years, we decided to launch education program. So the education program is focused on providing children and young people access to tools that enables them to be innovators, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers. We engage them in digital skill training programs. We teach them on subjects like coding, robotics, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. These are in-demand skills now in the market.
You're talking about how you've been able to impact a lot of people, especially young people. You've given them skills that are needed as we speak. And when these people come to you, what are their concerns? What is it that they want to learn from your center?
Given that they have that talent and that passion in them, when they come, they are so happy that, oh, I never believed that I could ever see a robot. I never believed that I could ever see a 3D printer. So when they come, they are so passionate, they are so excited, and so curious to get on it, to learn how these things work and how they can build theirs.
What does it take to build like a robot? Do you need special coding skills, computing skills? What is it that you need to be able to do to build a basic robot?
Robotics is a field that cuts across so many other fields. So, but the primary skills that you need to be a robot, you need to have coding skills. I need to have some creative skills that can enable you to build the mechanical parts of the robot. But once you're able to put code in it, a code is like you're telling it that, okay, move, or maybe jump, or walk, or maybe do this thing. So actually, building a robot requires you to have some technical skills like coding, and also passion and interest also comes in so much, because even if you know the coding but don't have that passion and interest, you may not be able to pay keen attention to to the little things around you that you can use the coding to build a robot that will solve those challenges.
You ask these young people to come up with solutions. They identify a problem, come up with a solution. Are you in a position maybe to name some of those things that people are able to do?
Started by building a 3D printer. Something that we notice around in schools. Schools here still have access to 3D printers. We recycled all printers and photocopiers to build a 3D printer, and it works so well. Right now, we are able to print our own parts using 3D printers. And also, some of the people, the young people who come around in our space here, they have been able to build agricultural robot that can yield. It can be used to till, it can be used to spray the farm and to plant as well. Some of them were able to build medical devices. Most of the times in rural areas or in remote areas, doctors who are in the cities may not be able to move right down to those places. So they made a device that can be used to monitor the vitals of a patient and send remotely to the doctor. Building delivery drones, especially during the COVID when people were indoors, they couldn't move out. These kids thought of building delivery drones.
How do you sustain this business model?
At the beginning of my journey, I never had support. I never had partners. In 2020, I received the Presidential Award in Cameroon for the Best IT Innovation of the Year. I received a grant of $27,000 US. And in 2021, I received $35,000 US from the Future of Canada's for awards that I won in Nigeria. So these are some of the things that I've been able to, to fund and invest in the things that I do. I mentioned the summer program that we have with kids. There's a subscription fee, that they pay to attend. But we don't make it too high because we know the situation around. So we just make it such a way that people can be serious and engage in the activity.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure sharing this with you.
Nzomisha Nevas is a tech entrepreneur, founder and CEO of NevTech, based in southern Cameroon. That's today's tech report. Back to you, Esther.
And thank you, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho every Wednesday for another tech report on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.